Alright, episode 5 gave us an awful lot to take in and talk about, so let's just go into that now, once again, with all the spoilers, so that those will all be here. I guess we'll go one character at a time, really, with the way this episode is laid out, we can do. I guess we'll start with the Celeste stuff, which in the last time we talked about pretty much everything that Mary Louise has on her that she can use as ammo to get the kids taken away from her. And I was starting to get worried about all that because of the recap, where they show us, what's happened before it goes into the episode. And the recap pretty much showed us all the bad shit that Celeste has done that Mary Louise can use against her. So that started immediately to feel like, okay, so as we guessed, all this stuff will probably come back. But there were a couple of things, some little quirks that they kind of threw into this episode that makes me feel a little bit better about it and Celeste's chances in general. Even if she is probably coming off a bit reckless and just how much she's going after Mary Louise during these little hearings, because the whole thing is to make her not look manic, because that's what Mary Louise is trying to prove. To get everything on her side, but and you can tell that she's just sort of trying to eat her way in a little bit, because it's the whole, hey, we'll do joint custody thing, and even Celeste's lawyer is saying, like, hey, that's a pretty decent deal, but we kind of know in our hearts that that's Mary Louise just kind of making baby steps to get this to the worst place possible for Celeste. But thankfully, Celeste seems to be the only one in those rooms that sees right through this. So hopefully this works out. There is the really nice scene. There's quite a few emotional scenes in this one compared to the other episodes. One of which being the scene when the kids basically are the ones comforting Celeste and telling her that more or less they've got her back. Because one of the issues I was wondering about was, would Mary Louise be able to turn the kids against her? And it doesn't look like that's going to be happening anytime soon. Certainly wouldn't be happening in 2 episodes, which is all we have left. So that's something that I think Celeste really has in her corner that's really going to help. The fact that they were actually willing to just flat out say we don't like her, before Celeste said maybe they should just take it easy and be truthful and all that. So Celeste does seem to be taking the right steps here. But she could probably also benefit from not seeming as manic when Mary Louise puts these propositions out there. Because that could go downhill very quickly, especially bringing in the whole thing about the whole trial, and then if she's asked about Perry, what's going to happen. And having to bring in this very risky meeting of all 5 of them. I was getting paranoid about, like, the headlights you could see in the background. It's like, is one of those that damn detective? And is watching all this happen. Which honestly wouldn't surprise me if that is revealed at some point that somebody saw this meeting. Actually, the more I think about it, the more I'm thinking that's a possibility. But still, I feel like, once again, because there's still 2 episodes and it feels like anything can happen, it does feel like their plan is a little too smooth. And they seem too confident in it. Where it's like, there's no way it goes this smoothly. Something is going to happen. Something is going to slip up during this trial. And it's like, is it even going to happen before the trial with the way Bonnie keeps going back to the police station and thinking it over? But we'll get to that more when we talk about Jane. But yeah, so and the way that this kind of brings on this whole new sweat in regards to them keeping this secret after it was put on so hard in the last episode when the detectives seemed to be popping up everywhere, and it's like that's sort of carrying over into this, and it's like, well, now it's the more it grows the stakes in regards to how they have to cover this up and why. It just feels like there's a mistake coming any minute, and it's a matter of who's gonna make it and how incriminating it's gonna be and what the consequences are, and we'll see what happens there. I do think I am kind of taken off the Bonnie thing where it's like maybe she'll be the one that outs it, because I still think they're kind of it's intentional misdirection, taking her to the police station twice, making it look like she's going to do it. especially now that she's been way distracted by something else going there now. So I'm gonna doubt she doesn't go in the police station this time either. So going on that, I figure transitions us into Jane, who I actually don't think I talked about at all in the last video, come to think of it, because she was more or less kind of a neutral and we could still, see where she had been throughout the story. But here, um, we do have a couple of turning points. Starting with when she gets closer to intimacy with Corey than she has before. Like, she's kind of slowly taking those steps, but she's still not quite there and still has this breakdown, but it's this really nice moment when he just consoles her, and just lets her let out whatever she feels, and it's like, we'll get there when we get there, and there's still no rush. We know you're still trying to heal, and it's still going to be there. It's fine. So once again, it's like, it is this nice thing where when we started, before everything started happening with Mary Louise, that Jane seemed to be in a happy place, and then we know that Mary Louise is kind of fucking that up. But she seems to be slowly getting back with this relationship with Corey. But I was saying before, I wasn't sure how I felt about Corey because it almost seemed like too good to be true. Like, Jane's life is not that easy, and there's going to be another conflict. And at this moment, at the very end of the episode, when we see him leave the police station, it suddenly occurs to me, okay, so the reason I kept saying that was, oh, is it going to be revealed that Corey's actually a piece of shit? Maybe not to the extent of Perry, but something along those lines, after all. But then it occurred to me, it doesn't necessarily... Corey can be somebody that he doesn't seem to be. Like, he can be hiding some sort of thing about him, but it wouldn't necessarily mean he has to be a bad guy, either. There's a number of things that come to mind watching him sprint out of the police station to his car, and Bonnie witnessing this. The first thing that immediately came to mind was, is he a cop of sorts whose job is to get close to Jane? Which would be really tragic for her, since this is finally starting to really feel real for her, and she sees a role model for Ziggy and all that. And another way to sort of take him away from the direction of, we really got to make sure he doesn't become Perry, despite having his genes. But then the other thing was, like, does he have some sort of criminal past, and he has to, like, check in or something? Or it could just be revealed to be something really mundane. It could be one of those things that's just strictly a cliffhanger, but then it's like, oh, actually, it was just this thing. I'm not quite sure what that would be that's small enough to be able to make us say, oh, it's just that, okay. But it could be something like that, too. Like I said, could just be a cliffhanger and nothing else. But, yeah, so I'm probably leaning more towards the whole criminal past thing. But it's just a matter of what that is. It could be something mundane. So I guess we'll have to see. But once again, it still kind of felt like there had to be something that was going to go wrong with Jane outside of the Mary Louise thing and outside of her trauma. So we'll see which one of those that is, if it's any of them. And yeah, the ending threw a lot at us there at once. So it's kind of hard to pick it all up, but we'll talk about that more also when we get to Ed and Madeline's situation. But while we're still on the Jane thing, there's also this confrontation that Ziggy had with this bully, where Celeste kids, stand up for him, and they call him his brother and all that, which is, I think, a great thing for Ziggy to have that sort of brother connection. It's sort of like Jane and Ziggy, and then Celeste and the kids are basically becoming like this extended family of sorts. But there is the whole thing about it didn't take them long to start beating the shit out of that bully. Even if maybe possibly the bully had it going still, it does make you wonder about, because we were wondering about how exactly being Perry's kid was going to, what that was going to do to Ziggy, like, genetically. And of course even Ziggy himself is realizing that and wondering if there's going to be any after effects to it. But then as we watch the three of them pummel this bully, there's the whole thing of, is it going to be less Perry's genes and more the influence that Perry's kids potentially have on him? Because as we were saying, there was the silver lining of, well, he's going to have Corey as a role model, right? And that'll maybe get him on the better path. and all those things that Jane said he's going to grow up to be. But once again, now we're kind of left up in the air for the moment as to who exactly Corey is. But once again, once that's revealed, then we'll have a whole new can of worms to go into. Um, so as far as the Bonnie situation goes, the Pulp Fiction fans, of course. As the Bonnie situation goes, there's the whole thing with her mom, which has really had this aura of mystery around it for a few episodes now. This whole thing with the water, and now she's, coming out and saying, I see Bonnie drowning and all that. And we were trying to figure out last episode if that was symbolism or if it's going to somehow end up taking a literal approach. It's really kind of hard to say. Because like I was saying before, it's like when you go back and watch season 1 all the way through, when it's like there's so many things that they just showed us right to our faces that we didn't quite catch until we knew everything. And then it all seems so obvious. And the question still remains if we're getting all that. But then they go into this whole... Well, the first thing is the relationship between Bonnie and her mom, where we keep getting the flashbacks. There's really heartbreaking flashbacks. The younger version of Bonnie, like when she was like sitting there like trying to do homework and getting like the table kicked, my heart just like really broke for her. And it's the way these scenes are intercut with this with her like tenderly holding her mom's hand. So it's like she's showing like this, a kind of thing of affection to her, the way she's holding her hand, yet it's intercut to basically show all of this, inner resentment that Bonnie has for her. It was like a really interesting contrast and kind of shows the sort of internal conflict with her and how she feels about her mom exactly. And then I was wondering how long Martin Donovan was going to be on the sidelines. But now it's finally being revealed to us that it's the resentment towards both her parents because her dad was just kind of doing just that, sitting on the sidelines and sort of letting this happen. The way she's like, well, now you want to get involved in this. And so it's all kind of starting to come together now with her entire background. But then once we're like, okay, we can kind of see what's going on with Bonnie now, this whole new thing is thrust on her, where her mom appears to be taking the title of this episode into consideration and basically begging Bonnie for euthanasia, which abruptly ends. We just abruptly cut to the whole police station thing after that. So it's like, is there something in between her mom saying kill me and Bonnie leaving the hospital that we didn't see yet that we're going to? Was there a measure that was already taken and we just didn't see it yet? So I feel like there's a missing piece there that we're gonna fill in later. That or the scene just ended really abruptly, but I'd like to think they've got a little something in there that we'll find out about. But yes, and then of course we've got the Renata thing going on where. As we talked about before, she's going to be in Celeste's corner through this and kind of be her advice giver until things are interrupted. Because we saw the whole thing before where she was going to be in the whole thing and be able to show off how rich she is and be one of the top people. And of course, now that's not really the case anymore, and now she's not going to be featured in that, and that whole thing is still going downhill. And it's like, there's the start of this scene, she's very, very involved in this Celeste thing, and I love the way Laura Dern played this, because you can see where, like, when you, like, have a friend that's in, like, a professional field and all that, and you can kind of see the difference between when they're the person you know normally and when they're the professional. It's like you can kind of see that difference in the way Laura Dern played this scene and the way she interacted with Celeste. And the way she like really took on that professional attitude about what they were talking about in the whole case. And then the second she was informed of this being taken out of this thing for not being on top anymore, as they said, the whole demeanor changed, and she kind of became like all consumed by this, and suddenly it didn't matter what the fuck Celeste was there for. Despite her being irate that she was interrupted, suddenly that became the whole thing. And then and that whole like hand movement she did when she was trying to register what she had just been told, and you could sense that she was just like about to crack. But then we get another Renata scene, one that once again also I feel like was maybe too short. When she brings Mary Louise into her house, and like she does with every other character, Mary Louise finds the way to get under her skin and basically say all the things she doesn't want to hear, and kind of have her, oh, I'm just a nice old lady trying to have tea and be friendly, but is obviously the facade to basically hit everybody where it hurts. um, and I feel like I really wish this scene had been just a little longer. I would have really kind of liked to see this back and forth a little more, and maybe be a bit more confrontational, sort of the way that Madeline never holds back when they have a run into each other again. And Madeline just kind of never holds back in her disdain whenever she just sees Mary Louise, just in any context whatsoever, which is great. So, yeah, and so now that kind of transitioned into what's going on with Madeline and Ed. And of course, Madeline has this idea of, hey, we'll go to this thing, maybe it'll be cathartic for us, maybe it'll help fix our marriage or something. And they go, and it's this embarrassing hug and breathe on everybody thing that neither one of them is into. And deep down, Madeline thinks it's hilarious, and it's like, hey, sorry we got involved in that. That was really dumb and a waste of time. And so we kind of think this is loose enough, and she's like singing in the car and all that, to where like we kind of keep waiting for Ed to crack a smile, and like maybe it'll be the start of the reconciliation. But Ed still obviously isn't to that point. And I think I understood Ed a lot better in this episode. We got to see a lot more of where exactly he's coming from inside himself. Because before I kept saying I wasn't sure exactly how to feel about him with the way he's been going about just about everything and being like confrontational about just about everything, and how he's basically like, well, maybe I can deal with this if I just sort of transition into full-time douchebag. But there are a lot of scenes that show the real human side of what exactly he's dealing with and why he would be acting the way that he is. Obviously, we see that to an extent, and we get that to an extent. But here it seems like we really kind of got that scene in the car with Madeline is really great and was really great for his character, where he basically breaks down that this isn't sort of a recent thing, the way Ed has been feeling about this marriage and exactly what he feels that it is at its core, and is able to break it down all the way from the beginning, like from when he and Madeline went on their very first date, to now, and see how there was always sort of something off about the way that they started and the way she sort of, it felt like he was being interviewed by her for the job position of husband, as opposed to somebody to actually be in love with for the rest of your life. Just really is just one scene that brings so much to light about everything we've seen about them so far. And then the scene with him and Chloe in the kitchen, it's just this really short moment, but says so much, and says, really shows where he is. And it's just this really great tender moment with hardly any dialogue at all. So I really loved that scene also, and like I said, it really brought out a side to his character where it's like, okay, he's not just being defensive and descending into douchebag to deal with what's going on and his resentment towards what Madeline did. So then this finally kind of comes to a peak in these very last scenes where, like I said, they're throwing so much at us all at once. And we get a glimpse of this, Ed being at this bar, and then the wife of the dude that Madeline was banging comes to him and seems to be flirting with him. And we see that the dude is also there watching this. And the only thing I can come up with of what this is a sort of them trying to get an even balance by any means necessary, where they had where she learned about the affair, so she basically told him, okay, well, we're going to even this out. I'm going to go bang Ed, and you basically have to watch it happen. And then we'll all be even. And that's what I'm assuming the setup was and what exactly they're doing. As far as Ed partaking in this, I honestly don't think that's going to happen. I think they're really trying to lead us to believe that Ed would do that because he is feeling so resentful inside himself. And like I said, it would kind of give it some sort of really, I mean, it would be balanced, but I mean, this isn't going to be healthy for anybody's relationship if this should happen. But I don't think Ed's going to actually do anything of that sort. Anything regarding infidelity, and it's like I said, they may try to make us believe that as far as they possibly can, but I think in the long run, he's not going to. I do sort of. This episode gave me a little faith in Madeline and Ed being able to eventually work this out. I could be totally off, but. And I feel like this might possibly be a start to that, of him avoiding this whole scenario, because obviously he wouldn't be acting the way that he has been if he didn't care a lot about his marriage. Even if we did get the whole thing about, he sort of felt like it was not exactly love-based from the start, but I don't know. It's really hard to say. There's a lot of things off here, but the bottom line is I don't think he's gonna bang the other dude's wife. So we'll see where Madeline and Ed go once that does or does not happen, and see where we go. But yeah, but I do think Madeline is, wanting to change whatever she did, and the way that she was able to basically confront the fact that she is going to keep fucking up in other ways, for sure, because it's not really just her and her character, but just a human thing in general. So, and I've felt like in that moment that Ed kind of saw something to where he wasn't just sort of blocking it out the way he has been. So, we'll see where that goes. So yeah, that this episode opened a shitload of doors to a bunch of different things, and it'll be interesting to see where they go. In the meantime, that's some of the places where I think it might be headed, and what we can take away from this episode by itself. So yeah, we'll see what the last two have to offer, and we'll see exactly how bad this gets, and once again, if there's any more bodies in this scenario, we'll find out also. So I think that's going to be it for this. I'm going to do a versus pretty much right after this, and then that'll be there. They're slightly out of order, but we're still caught up, so it's fine. And then next week, like I said, the review video is going to be one of those big videos where it's a bunch of stuff I need to catch up on, and another versus, and episode 6 of this. And then we'll go on for the rest of the month. So until all that stuff, I think that's it for the